All right, we're live. We're back at last after a couple of days absence. I kind of didn't want to be posting all over social media like all these new podcasts ever. 'Cause I don't want to be annoying people either. But no, back today. No warm up as usual. Going in raw as always because I know I find that if I kept going in with no kind of if I kind of edit everything and kind of give myself this false impersonation of who I really am, I'd rather people realize who I really am and not this kind of fake kind of imagery. But today I'm going to talk about meditation. Essentially it's a topic I want to talk about and familiarize myself for a long time, but I didn't want to get into it too much because it's a fairly expansive subject. But if you look back at the start of my first page, you can see that, or not my second page, you can see that I've touched up on it before. I didn't really write a whole lot on it because on Instagram doesn't really let you write a whole lot. But other than that, I have touched on it before. But I'm going to go into the whole science behind it, and the whole why I do it and everything today. But apart from me trying to tell you why I do it and why you should do it and what I've got from it and what the science has said about it, like there's a study that Tim Ferriss said that in one of his interviews that 80% or over 80% of performers that he interviewed had like some sort of meditative practice. And like, I don't know, I always thought when I was younger, I always thought meditation was kind of, I never really gave it much thought aside from something that like Buddhist monks or hippies did, like singing and like did like noise like and all that kind of like what I don't know. I didn't really like, think much of it, but it was only as I got older into my late teens and early 20s and that I discovered meditation for myself. And like since it's becoming more noticed and popular, I've looked into the science that backs up the limitless advantages of meditation, and like these include reducing stress, reducing high blood pressure, improving your immune system, decreasing anxiety and depression, improves pain tolerance and concentration, and improves your age-related cognitive disease, so many more. Like, just for example, like somebody who's like really hyper and struggles to concentrate, like that is me. I can be hyper once I get going, but meditation, like it changes like the way your brain functions on a day-to-day basis. So like even if you listen to this and don't meditate, I'm not telling you to not meditate, by the way. I'm just kind of getting my point across, but hopefully you can get more of an understanding of why people do it. But it is, in my opinion, worth trying and worth doing. Like, it's like, what can I compare it to? It's like going to the gym, for example. Like, for instance, you can't go just once, like, if see significant progressions instantly. Likewise, you can't go for a week and expect to get results. It's something you do over a period of weeks, period of months, or even period of years, like, that eventually you achieve these marginal gains. They're better known as doing the 1% better, which I kind of always talk about. But before you know it, like, when you meditate for like 2 or 3 months, even like 6 months, like you realize that you've come such a long way from where you once started. But now I'm just going to get into the science part, like of the brain regions and everything. But like, let's start off with something known as a flow state. So essentially, flow state, like we all go through this flow state or this form of effortless concentration while maintaining a maximum performance. Like an example of this would be if you're, say, competing in sports or playing a video game or playing an instrument or anything you find yourself being immersed in. It's like essentially being in the zone or being in the moment. But a state where your body and mind is challenged and you're working towards a goal, like when you're sufficiently challenged, you lose yourself in the objective at hand and time seems to like fly by and you could be enjoying yourself. You really feel good and you could possibly be rewarding. But like I like anything, like you also lose any sort of external extraction and you're just being immersed in the tasks where there's an output of a high focus and high performance. So essentially it's been shown that people who meditate get into this flow state much easier. And if you are an experienced meditator, you achieve this much quicker than people who don't. And you are also less prone to zoning out from the task at hand. Like there's a voice inside our heads basically, which is, I don't mean obviously like people with schizophrenia or, anything like that, but more so like the little voice that you hear, like when you're making a mental note of something or looking at someone down the street, or if you're looking yourself in the mirror thinking, oh, I look like this or look like that today. It's just like them kind of little voices inside our head. But we basically, all of us humans have this internal narrative inside our voice or inside our heads. Excuse me. And like we were able to question like that's the thing about us, like we're able to question our own thoughts. Like I've definitely mentioned this before on one of my other Instagram account. But I read this book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I think I read it maybe 2 months, 2 3 months, 4 months. I don't know. It was a while ago anyway. I think it was about maybe 3 months ago. And it discusses the internal narrative. And at the start of the book, he goes into like that he's depressed and miserable, and he goes, "Why do I feel like this?" And he had a bit of a light bulb moment or an epiphany where he came to the realization that the ability to question his thoughts and the ability to question the way he is thinking suggested there's two rather than one inside of your head. Like rather than just being your brain and that's it. Like we also have this consciousness or ability to question your brain and what your thinking mind is doing. But I'm not like trying to jump down this spiritual hole or anything like that. But that's just how the art tackled it. But like, if I'm getting to the science side of it now, like modern science is shown in the narrative and could potentially come from something known as the default mode network. And these regions of the brain, like the default mode network, is the regions that are active when we are not focusing on anything, such as if we were bored, procrastinating, scrolling through social media, daydreaming, like which is essentially the opposite of a flow state. And these regions are called the default mode network because like these become active and it typically gives us a list of information about ourselves. So for instance, it might be worries about other people's judgment, worrying about the future, or dwelling on something from the past. Like these are signs of entering this default mode network, which from the sounds of it isn't necessarily a good thing per se, but you don't want to be in the situation if you want to achieve being in this flow state of letting go to last on. Ugh, sorry, Jesus. Don't know why. I just feel like a really bad cotton mouth or something, even though I like drank a shit ton of water this morning. But I don't know, maybe it's just the nerves. Maybe it's a couple of days of being rusty doing podcasts. But yeah, I don't know, I'm kind of going off a tangent now as I normally do. But no, it really does tie into how meditation. It really does tie into how 8% of high performers have this mindful practice. Like, so it's a series of regions in the brain, like the default mode network. When you don't have a particular focus on anything, like these negatively correlated things known as like task positive brain regions, they basically occur when the default mode network is active. And this the state of your brain, or those regions that are active, are the opposite of the regions when you are immersed in something. So basically it prevents you from getting inside this flow state. It generally is associated with procrastination, like wandering minds, lost in your thoughts, and let's say not associated with things involving productivity. Like the default mode network is less active when you wake up because you haven't had the time to procrastinate or think of what, which is why meditating will assist you in having a so-called Zen morning. Like I'm not going to go off tangent here again, but I meditate. I try to meditate every single morning, like provided I'm not with someone else or wake up, doing something. But every morning, if I'm in my own room by myself, I will meditate for at least 10 minutes because I think it really does get you into that kind of flow state where you're just really with your breath and really with yourself. And I think it kind of helps you become a bit more productive throughout your day in the morning instead of like kind of consuming yourself with emails and social media and just like, worrying about what people might text you or whatever like that. It's just like you're kind of just so immersed in being in the now. And like even like sometimes if I'm like not in work or anything like that or don't have anything on, like I'll meditate and then read, because I feel like if you read after you meditate, it kind of helps you retain a lot more information. Like if I like to use the analogy, it's like eating an apple. Like say I'm gonna say if I use social media and start reading and then I meditate, or if I meditate and start reading, it's like eating an apple. Like say if you eat an apple, it's nice and sour or sweet or whatever way people like their apples, but like it's really nice like if you eat it straight away. But if you eat a load of sweets, which is compared to social media, and then eat the apples, it's not going to taste as nice. You're not really getting the full kind of fulfillment of it. That's the analogy I like to use. That's why I like to meditate before I do something I know I have to be productive at, or something I need to focus or be in that flow state for, because it really does train you to be in that kind of flow state. But moving on anyway, because I'm going off topic as usual. But okay, so I'm going back to this flow state, and before I get into meditation, in order to get into this flow state, you need to be actively focused on a task for a long period of time. And the more you get into it, the more you'll be likely to immerse yourself in it. It's like when you first start reading, for example. I'll go back to the reading example, but it's very, very difficult. And the longer you do it, the more you get into it. But the default mode network reactivates the moment you stop paying attention. And if you get distracted by a notification on your phone, start scrolling through social media, you'll enter that default mode network and leave that flow state. So in short, based in summary, essentially, the default mode network is a productivity killer, and meditation is a killer of the default mode network. And the regions in your brain will, with the default mode network, are going to be less active in people who meditate and are potentially less active. I've lost my train of thought again. But you can see that you can change the way your brain operates. So you can train your brain to be in a different state and emit different ways and behave differently through meditation. Like, it's not something you can just do or pick up quickly, like instantly, and expect to get results. Like, it's challenging and does like take a while to train your brain to get into this like flow state. So it's like anything. Like, it's like, you ever hear the term "use it or lose it"? It's like it's a bit like that. So if you stop meditating, you're going to lose all the progress you made. Like, this is where like this kind of term is practical, because if you stop meditating, you'll notice how you kind of slip back into old habits of not being able to concentrate, not being able to focus. You'll probably won't be one of your mind, essentially. But from my experience, like I started meditating once a day in the morning usually, and I sometimes do twice a day before I go to bed. Like, it's a part of my daily routine now. Like, I couldn't it is essential for setting up my day. And the only regret I do have about meditating is I didn't start sooner. But I think there's a paper I read, I forget what I think it's called something like The Wandering Mind is Wandering Mind is it's a unhappy mind. Yeah, wandering mind is unhappy mind. So when we were in the default mode network, we were living in the past or future. Like, we got all these things going on and not focusing on the task at hand. And when the default mode network is active, we are not going to be unhappy. But if we enter this flow state and lower the activity in the default mode network, we are going to be put into these regions of our brain that are more associated with positive things and what we want to do. And if you're in a more positive place mentally, then you're more likely to succeed and achieve more things in your life, and you're going to do better. And it's going to further snowball. It's going to create a snowball effect of doing well in your life. So overall, meditation lowers activity in the default mode network, and you can cause long-term changes in your brain by meditating, which is why we do it. Like, the way I see meditation is it's a form of Sahara. It's basically like PEDs or roids for your brain. Like, if you can change the way your brain and your mind functions through nothing, you can enhance your life. And the fact that this isn't taught at schools or amongst society is a bit mind-boggling to me, because it's very, very, very underlooked, in my opinion. But it reforms the enhancer in the way that you're able to concentrate more. Like, it does numerous things for both physiological, like your physical and mental and emotional state, and it helps you become a less reactive person and so on. Like, these are many benefits. Like, it's been backed by science and real studies, and which is why some people of high performance do some sort of meditative practice. Like, it also commonly involves like using the breath. Like, the breath is the main focus when you're meditating. Like, it's not really so much about sitting there in a big circle, ignoring your thoughts and stopping your mind from thinking. Like, the common misconception for meditation is that you are emptying your mind, and it's more so being accepting and observing your thoughts and emotions. Like, you, in conclusion, observe your thoughts, don't judge them, and don't try pushing them away or get rid of them. Like, it's impossible to clear your mind. Like stop. Like, for example, stop for a second. Like, pause this podcast and try not to think about anything at all. Just pause right now. Right, I'll give you a few seconds. That was quite difficult, wasn't it? Like, it was quite difficult. It is literally so difficult just to completely empty your mind. But what I'm trying to prove here is that if you try to sit there in silence and not think of anything, like, your default mode network will fire up, because you're untrained, basically. Like, you will begin to think in a way where your head is like, don't think, don't think, don't think. And then you'll always have this internal narrative, wherever it is. You'll always find it very, very difficult unless you are an enlightened individual or a very experienced meditator, to drop this clearing your mind kind of jazz or whatever. But this is all associated with the default mode, or the DFMN, as I was talking about earlier. So what meditation does is it allows you to be aware that you're distracted by your thoughts, and allows you to be more focused, and helps you get into the state where you can actually observe your thoughts, emotions, or feelings. Like, you're able to concentrate more and able to focus on the task at hand and be more goal orientated and not having all these distractions and other things. And another benefit of meditation, it improves your ability of awareness and attention, as it basically conditions your brain. And like, every day we are bombarded with things and information such as social media, as these platforms want your attention. Like, it's toxic for concentration, it's toxic for productivity, and like all around me there's so many distractions. Like, and like, I've books, I've my laptop, I've notes about food, I've just everything. Like, and then throw social media into the pot. Like, we have this constant input of sensory data constantly coming in, which ultimately is the reason why we have short attention spans. Like, our attention spans are fucked compared to people from years ago. We have so many distractions now. I think there's a study, I remember being told this before. I think, what was it, back in the day, people were able, or older people or something like that, they were able to keep their attention much longer than, I think it was like a minute longer. Like, I think it was like 50 seconds or something like that for older people. And then it was like, for us, like this generation, like 20 odd seconds. Like, it just shows how much like our phone just influences our way of thinking and living. But take this for example. Like, say we're working on a college project or a work project or whatever it is, and a notification appears on your phone. Then this will probably make you go on your phone and like create a domino effect, which occurs by scrolling through and doing other things, which then activate your default mode network. So in this day and age, we are conditioned to have incredibly shit attention spans and not being able to concentrate on the task at hand, which is kind of another. I know it's not really much to do with meditation, but I personally turn off notifications on my phone if I'm like busy or if I need to concentrate on something. I like to turn off notifications, so I'm not grasping to look at my phone. Like, I'm not like, oh, someone's texting me, I need to go on it straight away. Like, I kind of like to turn off notifications so I don't really see anything and kind of just focus on the task at hand. But moving back on to meditation again, so we want to be able to develop or cultivate this ability to get into this flow state and suppress our ability of being this default mode network all the time. And that's where meditation comes into play. Like, essentially, meditation and mindfulness come in hand. Like, mindfulness isn't so much about thinking of other people, but it's more about paying attention in a particular way, or being in the present and not judging the way you feel and not judging other people. Like, by closing your eyes and taking deep breaths, you are concentrating on your thoughts, which being the breath, and you're more concentrating on some raw sensory data. And it doesn't have to be in the breath, but it's normally how most meditation starts, and focusing on this one thing. Like, in your internal narrative, like, it'll distract you and it'll try to take your attention away from the breath. But you got to realize that and correct it. So once you realize you're thinking about something else other than the breath, you gently bring the attention back to the breath. So another point, which is essentially like what that is conditioning you to do, is that it's demonstrating you how much your brain is taking you away from things. Like, this internal or inner narrative or internal narrative is a thing that distracts you and takes you away from that. And by paying attention to your breath and focusing on one thing, and you're conditioning yourself to acknowledge the mindful, to be like, okay, I got distracted, I got to put myself back to what I was concentrated on. And by doing this over and over again, you're going to get better at it, and you begin to find it easier to concentrate on one single thing. Like, the default mode network regions begin to be suppressed, and the voice inside your head begins to shut up more often. And eventually, you'll begin to find yourself focusing on your breath and the task at hand even easier, which will then allow you to get into this flow state easier. But it's not instant. For example, like, it's all about doing the 1% better every day, the marginal gains, etc., etc. But our internal narrative is always thinking about the future or living in the past and trying to take you away from these things. So if we meditate And the reason I meditate for me personally is because it enables me to be more focused, it enables me to be a less emotionally reactive person. It gives me more empathy and it allows me to understand other points of view. It enables me to shift my frame in terms of how I think of things. And you realize that the cup half empty, cup half full mentality. And when you use that analogy, like meditation, it's really trying to get you into that cup half full mentality. But there are studies that shows copious amount of benefits when you improve your physical self and mental self. It's almost like a yin yang kind of scenario where your physical self leads to a better mental self, and a better mental self leads to a better physical self. You know where I'm trying to get at here, but I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand how people wouldn't do it if they're aware of these benefits. Like, I do understand there's a very grey area between science and spirituality involving meditation. Like, the facts and the studies from science back up the brain activity of meditation. Like, meditation is a productivity view, where, as from a spiritual view, it tries to inform us of our consciousness and like the wonders of the universe and all these other things that are like not so widely accepted by science. And I'm kind of rambling off, like kind of going off tangent here, but you get the point. Like, I'm kind of just trying to show you this difference between like the science and spiritual kind of side. Like, a lot of people don't really understand the spiritual side of things, which I'm going to admit I'm not like 100% understanding of it, but I do kind of get the premise of it. But another thing I never really realized is that the black and white clear science behind meditating, like, you don't have to believe all the spiritual side of it, but the science is, it's pretty conclusive when it comes to the benefits of it. But like meditation, it ties in with happiness, as meditation helps you be at one with yourself. It helps you experience your thoughts and emotions and not really ruled by them. Like, for example, like, we live in the past. Why do we worry about the future? Like, why do we worry about going up and speaking to someone? Why do we worry about, chatting up a girl or a lad, like, or getting a number? Like, how things could possibly go wrong and other things. Like, it's because we take our past experiences and the worst things that could or have happened to us. Like, our internal narrator takes these things and applies them to the future. And at the end of the day, it's like a preservation mechanism. And there's another study that has shown that meditators can deal with more physical pain. And there's a study done, I honestly can't remember for the life of me what it was called, but if you went on Google Scholar or something like that and you looked up like meditation pain threshold or something like that, you'll probably find it there. But it's where a scientist got some sort of a heated element, I think it was, with experienced meditators and people who didn't meditate at all. And this element got heated up, which caused pain. And the scientists took a reading, at which point the people couldn't take it anymore. And the meditators weren't meditating, but more so in a day-to-day state. And the brain activity was being monitored. And what happened was that meditators were able to take the pain much better, even though they weren't even meditating. Like, they were able to deal with the pain more, but the pain was taken with more clarity, which is showing that the meditators are shown to activate different regions of the brain to handle pain. Like, brainwaves and all that aren't really my expertise, so I won't go too much into it. But in short, like, meditators are definitely a lot more resilient. And as meditators are more resilient, someone who's established at it will have more resilience and be able to deal with things better. And we're all going to like go through hardships and tragedies in our life. And you're going to be able to deal with it better and cope with it and overcome adversities. And basically, if I wanted to make a suggestion to start meditating, I think you should try Headspace, as I use Headspace every day or almost every day. And I started halfway, I think I started in like June or July last year, somewhere around that anyway. It was late. I was either late June or early July, but there's apps and all that. There's Calm, there's what's the other one? I think there's one called Waking Up as well, isn't there? I think. But I know Headspace is the most popular one to use. Like, I know there is YouTube videos and all as well. I think Headspace will be the one I recommend to start off with, as you're guided and you're learning how to meditate. It's like essentially the building blocks of meditation. It really teaches you the core basics without being too out there with the concepts behind it. But I know I've been rambling on as always. So, geez, we're 24 minutes in. But in summary, I've been rambling on, like, so I'll just basically give a quick summary of meditation. It's basically not about clearing your mind. It's not about getting rid of things. It's simply about observing your thoughts, learning not to judge others, not to judge yourself. Not like just simply observing everything you have. Like it teaches you to align yourself with a goal, and it's noticing when you're distracted by your thoughts and putting them back on track. Yeah, okay, that's going to be enough rambling for me today. I'm going to try upload podcasts twice a week if I can. Depends on the reception on them. I think they're getting pretty good reception at the moment, so I'm going to try keep them up. I'm going to try maybe get guest speakers in sometime soon. I don't know. I kind of just started on my own just to kind of get the feel for it and how it is. But no, I'm definitely more than happy to get people in. And if any criticisms or queries, I know you can't really rate podcast Spotify, but I never really would ask to rate people or follow me around like that. But if you have any queries or suggestions that you want me to talk about, please let me know and I'll do my best to get into it. But yeah, hope everyone has a good day and I'll talk to you soon.